Revelation chapter 12 verses 1 and 2. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet. And upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. The Revelation chapter 12 heavenly sign, 14 pregnancy points. It is because of these 14 points that I can verify the heavenly sign has been 100% legitimately executed. It is because of these 14 points that I can verify the heavenly sign is a one of a kind. Before I explain each point, I'll run through the list so that you can have an understanding of what it is I'm about to talk about. Point number 1. Woman clothed with the sun. The sun's brilliance clothes her. Point number 2. The moon is under her feet. Point number 3. Crown of 12 stars directly above her head. Point number 4. Pregnant. Jupiter's retrograde motion for 42 weeks. Point number 5. Giving birth. Jupiter between Virgo's legs on the 23rd of September 2017. Point number 6. Menstruation. Point number 7. Ejaculation. Point number 8. Insemination. Point number 9. The fimbria ovarica sweeping the ovary. Point number 10. Ovulation. Point number 11. Conception. Point number 12. Implantation. The next point has already been covered, which was at point 4, which is that she is pregnant. Point number 13. A baby bump. Jupiter goes outside the womb at 29 weeks. Point number 14. Labour pain, cried out. The next point has already been covered at point 5, which is giving birth. Now for the details explaining each point. The red line shown is known as the ecliptic and is the path the sun takes through the Mazzaroth, which is the biblical zodiac spoken of in Job chapter 38 verse 32. The sun and other planetary bodies, including the moon, move from right to left on the screen as time proceeds, with stars remaining fixed in the background. This movement occurs as the Earth moves around the sun. The sun clothes Virgo once a year during the autumn of the Northern Hemisphere. Now let us look at point 2, which is the moon under the feet of Virgo. First of all, the date is the 23rd of September 2017 and the time is 1700 hours and 27 minutes, Israel Daylight Time, which is UTC plus 3 hours. The last star in Virgo, according to Bayer designation, is Mu Virginis. The moon is considered to be past this star when its position along the ecliptic is at a right angle to this star. The next point, which is number 3, involves the crown of 12 stars above Virgo's head. The most critical thing here is how many stars are in the constellation Leo. Traditionally, it is 9 stars, which I'll explain why in a moment. However, some who have wanted to slur the Revelation 12 heavenly sign have claimed that there is up to 15 stars in the constellation of the Lion. The 15 stars comes from a book published in 1952 by Hans Augusto Rey, titled "The Stars, A New Way to See Them," who thought to add stars to constellations to make them more accurately reflect what he thought they should look like. He did this, I believe, without the proper knowledge founded in the Bible. Essentially, he did not know or did not care to know that the lion is meant to be couching, not crouching, and certainly not walking. Genesis chapter 49 verse 1. And Jacob called unto his sons, and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Genesis 49 verse 9. Judah is a lion's whelp, from the prey, my son. Thou art gone up. He stooped down, he couched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? I believe that there is circumstantial evidence to suggest that Jacob was acquainted with the Mazzaroth, since Job and Israel's grandfather, Abraham, were contemporaries. The second thing to do with point number 3 is the wandering stars, or planetes, namely Venus, Mars, and Mercury, which complete the alignment on the 23rd of September, making a total of 12 stars above Virgo's head. The critical thing here is that planets are qualified as stars, since the original meaning of planet is wandering star. It should also be noted that all 12 stars are to the upper side of the ecliptic and directly above Virgo's head, where you would expect to find a crown, unlike the constellation Coma Berenices. The fourth point for me was the clincher that sealed the deal in regard to the veracity of the sign's validity. Jupiter's retrograde motion causes the planet to appear to be inside the womb of Virgo for exactly 42 weeks, which is the equivalent to a late-term pregnancy. I spent a week researching this aspect over 4 years ago and determined that no other year had this particular fulfillment along with the other 3 points already mentioned. I researched a total of 7,400 years, with 6,200 years in the past and 1,200 years in the future, checking every 83 years for the pregnant woman with Jupiter's retrograde motion inside the area considered to be the womb of Virgo. Jupiter's orbital period is just under 12 years, so I also checked the years when Jupiter did not fall exactly within the quadrangle either side of the 83 years. In other words, the 71st and the 95th years. This meant there was 89 times when Jupiter was inside the womb for the minimum 40-week period equivalent to human gestation during the 7,400 years I checked, which amounts to 267 total checks when the cycles either side are also included in the dataset. But in these 267 checks, on not one occasion were the other 3 conditions previously mentioned also fulfilled at the same time, as it is on the 23rd of September 2017. I have an Excel spreadsheet in the description box below where you can verify my findings. Before we move on to the expanded list, we have one more item on the short list that is also directly reflected in Scripture. That is in verse 2 of Revelation chapter 12. For a baby to be considered delivered its legs and body must be clear of the woman's body. Jupiter crosses what is considered to be the cervix of Virgo on the 9th of September and reaches what would be a position clear of the womb exactly 2 weeks later on the 23rd of September. As previously stated, this is when the moon is under the feet of Virgo. Now for the expanded list. I have noted point 6 as menstruation since every cycle begins with this phase before ovulation can occur. From the beginning of menstruation until ovulation there is 14 days or 2 weeks. This just happens to be the time shown at the end of the pregnancy from when Jupiter crosses the cervix until when the moon is under the feet of Virgo and the baby is considered to be delivered. It is critical to the other points, as we shall later see, that when Jupiter hits the side of Virgo's womb on the 20th of November 2016, for that action to be considered as ovulation. That being the case, there is no other conceivable way to geographically depict the 14 days except at the end of the pregnancy cycle, even though it is technically at the beginning. This 14-day period between the 9th and the 23rd of September therefore serves two purposes. One, to illustrate that Jupiter, which is a token of the man-child, has been delivered or born, and secondly, to illustrate the 14 days between the woman's first blood and ovulation. Before I discuss points 7, 8, 9 and 10, I would like to discuss first of all what has been dubbed as the Conception Comet, otherwise known as Comet C/2017 E1 Borisov, that was discovered on the 4th of March 2017. The comet's trajectory, which is hyperbolic, which means it is non-periodic, can be viewed here on The Sky Live. The trajectory being shown of the Conception Comet is from 1980 until 2051. This is how the comet looks in the stargazing program Stellarium, with the oscillating red crosshair indicating its position as it approaches the cervix of the constellation Virgo. The comet intersects the cervix at exactly 10:37 a.m. on the 17th of November 2016. This is incredible when we consider that Jupiter hits the side of the womb on the 20th of November 2016, just 3 days later. The day calculated as the day of ovulation. Sperm are viable for up to 5 days when fertile mucus is present, so it is feasible that the astrosperm would reach the egg within perfect timing. Now, just one sperm by itself does not sound realistic when one considers there is between 15 and 200 million sperm per milliliter. It just so happens that between the orbit of Mars and the orbit of Jupiter, there is an asteroid belt that has between 1.1 and 1.9 million asteroids, larger than 1 kilometre in diameter, and millions more smaller than that. On the 17th of November 2016, the Conception Comet is in the very midst of the asteroid belt. It should be noted at this point that the largest cell found in the human body is the egg, and the smallest cell found in the human body is the sperm. It should also be noted that the largest planet in the solar system is Jupiter, and one of the smallest articles in the solar system is a comet or an asteroid. There is no physical connection between the end of the fallopian tube and the ovaries. Ovulation is triggered when the fimbriae, which is Latin for fringe, that are at the end of the fallopian tube, tickle one of the ovaries. It is then that the egg is released and falls down the fallopian tube. The first fringe to reach the ovaries is the fimbria ovarica. In my opinion, there is clearly a relationship between the shape of this part of the female reproductive system and the Hanukkah lamp, that also has the shemesh, which is the longest central branch of the lamp and is comparable to the fimbria ovarica. So Jupiter crosses the emptiness of space, just like an egg crosses the emptiness of space between the ovary and the fallopian tube. This occurs on the 20th of November 2016, which is considered as day 0. The egg is then fertilized by the sperm with a blast of light. Then the now zygote moves down the fallopian tube until it implants itself into the uterine wall on day 6. Implantation normally occurs 9 days after ovulation. However, the range is between 6 and 12 days. The reason I have specified day 6 as the day of implantation is because this is the day TorahCalendar.com designates the Feast of Lights, that is Hanukkah, which John speaks about in his Gospel chapter 10 verse 22 as the Feast of Dedication. The base of the Hanukkah lamp therefore represents the uterus. We have now covered points 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. The next point is the baby bump at number 13. At 29 weeks, Jupiter leaves the quadrangle considered to be a normal size womb and virtually extends this area by so doing. Jupiter then returns back into the space allocated as the womb, before then leaving the womb altogether on the 9th of September 2017. 29 weeks is comparable with 7 months of pregnancy, in which case a baby bump is easily discernible as shown here. The next point, which is number 14, completes our set of information with double perfection. As far as crying out with labour pains goes, this event, however, is not perfectly timed. As with point number 11, which is the conception comet, I believe the events were timed to build interest among those keenly watching the Revelation 12 heavenly sign unfold. Its timing may then not be as imperfect as we think. Ideally, this event, which I will describe in a moment, should have taken place on the 23rd of September, but if it had have done so, it may have been obscured and climaxed by the event itself. In other words, it may have been missed. The event took place on the 12th of May 2017, which was 174 days, or approximately 25 weeks into the pregnancy. The fact that the event took place so close to Virgo's head is, however, of great interest and cannot be ignored. On the 12th of May 2017, a then unexplained radio signal was detected or heard from a red dwarf star known as Ross 128. It has since been explained as most likely coming from a geostationary satellite orbiting the Earth. Nevertheless, something was heard right near the head of Virgo. Because of the proximity of the signal to Virgo's mouth, and because this point completes a double set of 7, I believe it is qualified as one of the signs within the Revelation 12 heavenly sign. In addition to that, the scripture is not wasted when it bothers to say that the woman, quote, being with child, cried. Once again, God's words are not wasted. Isaiah 55 verse 11. So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it.